Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing well. My name is Jordan Sturgill, and I'm going to be sharing your Week 7 lecture for CSCI 1100. Let me share my screen to get started. All right, so the first thing that I wanted to touch on real quickly before we jump into the majority of our lecture is the capability that you have to collaborate on Microsoft Word. So you might have found in your school career or in life in general that you have needed to work on a Word document with other people in real time. Now, if you're using a traditional Word document, this can be difficult. You can have trouble passing that document from one member to another, or trying to have each member send in what they want added, and then having one person that has to sift through everything. Maybe you've experienced having a slow response from your other team members, or a variety of other issues too. So, Microsoft Office Online and Office 365 now allow you to real time co author your documents so that you can see each member's work as they contribute to your shared document. So, this is a link that I followed. It is Microsoft's support website, and you will have this information in your reading this week as well. You'll have an ebook posted on D2L for your reading. But basically, this article gives useful information on how to collaborate on Word documents. So, like I said, you'll have this in your reading. But if this isn't something you're incredibly familiar with, it can be really helpful for you to read through this, just to kind of learn a little bit more about how to collaborate. So I'm going to switch over to my PowerPoint for this week, and we're going to be switching between a PowerPoint and Microsoft Word. But this week, we're going to be talking about resumes and cover letters, specifically how to create those in Word. So there's the link that I just showed you. Moving forward, what is a resume? So you might be familiar with resumes. You might have created one for yourself by now, or maybe you haven't, and that's okay. So, in a nutshell, a resume is the official documentation of your skills and abilities in the workplace. So, your resume might include things like your work history, your school and education. Essentially, it's a catalog of your abilities. However, not all resumes are good resumes. So, what constitutes a good resume? The purpose of your resume is to sell yourself to a potential employer. And it's important to remember that resumes don't need to take the place of an interview, they just need to get you one. So, what this means is that you don't need to include every single last detail about yourself in your resume, because if you do that, it's very likely that it probably won't get read. So, the point of your resume is to secure an interview for you. Employers see all kinds of resumes, especially when they're actively hiring or recruiting, and you need to make yours stand out. However, this doesn't mean that it needs to be the brightest, the longest, the loudest, or the one with the most pictures. Your resume will stand out if it's well organized, clean, consistent, and supplies the information that your employer wants to know. So, a couple of rules of thumb for a resume, and this can vary depending on your industry, um, different things like that, how much experience you might have. But a good rule of thumb to follow is that you want your resume to be one page front and back. This means that when your resume gets printed off, it is one sheet of paper. Now, if you haven't acquired a ton of work experience yet, it's probably best to keep your resume to one page, just the front. So, one single page in Microsoft Word. Now, once you have enough experience to justify including additional information, that's when you can maybe get away with one page front and back. But basically, you don't want your resume to be too lengthy. Another good rule of thumb, no matter what, is to make sure that your resume is organized, it's easy to read, and you have consistent formatting throughout. You want your employer to know that you took care in creating this resume that you're now presenting to them. It's also really important to tailor your resume to each specific job that you apply for. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to make a brand new resume for every employer. But you should do your research on that employer, learn a little bit about the company and their mission statement, learn a little bit about the job and what you'll be doing, and change a few keywords and phrases throughout your resume, or even try to highlight different parts of your experience that may be more relevant in a specific job. This will show your employer that you actually took the time to read the job posting, to do your research, and that you understand what's required of this position. Now, we will be working together in class today on creating a resume, but you also have a resume assignment that is homework. So this must be completed and turned in to the Dropbox on D2L. Now, what I'll be doing and showing in the lecture today is pretty close to your homework assignment, uh, but make sure that you still follow the assignment instructions carefully because I don't have those pulled up in front of me right now. So make sure you take a look at those too and don't just go by what I share, but it should be essentially the same. I'm going to switch over to Microsoft Word. Now, the first thing I wanted to show you is the backstage view of Microsoft Word. So I am in the new category here, so I'm creating a new document. And Word has a bunch of online templates that you can use that are already formatted for you, and it takes a lot of work away from you. So we can search for templates. You could search resume if you wanted to see the different designs that Word has for you. We are going to use the origin resume, and I know that's already showing on my screen because I just opened it. But I'm going to search origin. And you'll see that not only do they have an origin theme resume, they also have an origin theme fax, an origin theme letter, an origin theme fax cover sheet. So Word will often create templates within a variety of documents so that you can have a consistent look if you need more than one piece of work. But we are going to do the origin theme resume. So if you'll just select that and hit create, I already have mine pulled up, so I'm just going to toggle over to another window. But once you create your origin theme resume, this is what you'll see. So this is already structured for you and has places where you can just plug in information. So the first thing that I would do if I were you is go ahead and save this document to your machine using the correct naming for a class assignment. And again, this is homework, so make sure to do the homework and submit it to Dropbox. All right. So the first thing I want to call your attention to here is that we actually have 4 tables in this document. The first is this top dotted line. Oh, maybe. There we go. It doesn't look like a table. It looks like a line, but this is performing within Word as a table. And we can tell that because when we select it, we get these move handles, and that's what identifies this as a table. So this is considered a table. This first block of text is considered a table. Of course, this larger block of text is a table. And then we also have a dotted line right here at the bottom that is considered a table. So the first thing that we are going to do is delete both of these dotted line tables. So there are a couple of ways that you can go about doing this. First, when you select a table, you'll notice that you have 2 new tabs displayed on your ribbon within Word. You have Table Design and Layout. Within the Layout tab, you will see over in the Rows and Columns group that there is a Delete button with a drop-down arrow. So you can use this to only delete cells or columns or rows within your table, or you can delete an entire table. However, since this table only has 1 column and 1 row, if we selected delete column or delete row, it's essentially the same as selecting delete table. So I'm going to delete this table. And then I'm going to scroll up to the top dotted line and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to select that, which can be kind of tricky to do because it's small and not easy to click on. Maybe. I'm also on a different computer right now, and the mouse, the sensitivity is a little bit different. There we go. So another way, if you want to delete your entire table, to do that is just to select the table and hit the backspace key on your keyboard. and that does the exact same thing. All right. Now, this gives us a little bit more room to work within our resume, and this also within your assignment will demonstrate your ability to modify the resume template. So now we're going to work on filling in some of these blanks. So in the top table, we're going to select where it says your name. Just type in your name. Now, when this content control is selected, you can just start typing, and I'll show you that when we move on to. And the your name will disappear and will be replaced by the words that you type. So let's go ahead and fill out the rest of this top table. You do not need to put your real address or phone number, or if you have a website, I don't necessarily need your real website. You can make things up here. So for address, so you can see I just selected it. I'm not going to hit backspace, but if I just start typing, it replaces that placeholder text with my own. So I'm just going to make up an address. I'm going to make up a phone number. I'm going to make up an email. Actually, I'll use my real email. That's fine. And then I'm going to make up a website. All right, so just get that content filled out there. And now we're going to move down to our objectives, content control. So when we select this little type objectives, content control, let's see, I'm just going to make up. So let's say I want to apply to be a student teacher at ETSU. So that's the scenario I'm going to use. I think that's a little bit different than what your homework says. Let's say that my objective, let's see, I would like to obtain a position at ETSU that will allow me to use my degree and skills to help educate students. So that was just something kind of off the cuff. So put something in there. In a real resume, you may or may not include objectives. And again, that's kind of dependent on your industry and just kind of best practices there. All right, so now we're going to jump down to the education section, and I'm going to make up information here. So let's say, wow, I can't spell today. I have a bachelor's of science in computing. Let's say I completed that in the year 2000. And then we can type our list of accomplishments here. So the first thing, let's say I was on the dean's list. Now, this only gives me one bullet to type my accomplishments, but if I have a few, I can easily add new bullets just by hitting enter. So let's say I also was a member of, I don't know, polo. And then you can continue hitting enter to add as many bullets there as you would like to. Now, if you need another line but no bullet, you can do that by pressing shift and enter at the same time. So let's say I was a polo member from, what's my degree date, 2000? 1999 to 2000, or whatever the case may be there. So that's easy to do too if you ever need to do that. All right, so now let's move down to experience. So I'm gonna just enter some data here. So job title, let's say I was already a student teacher from 2010 to 2020. Let's say I did that with, let's say Milligan. And then you would type their address. I don't know Milligan's address. I'm gonna make that up, and then we can jump down and type some responsibilities. So let's say I taught 100 students each semester, handled grading and class logistics, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I might need more headings because I've had more than one job. So if I want to put more than one experience here, I can just create a new line for myself. So I just hit enter twice. And I can go to the insert tab on my ribbon, over to the text group, and then to quick parts, which is this one in the middle top here. And when I click that, it follows the formatting of the template that I'm using. So I can just scroll down and add a new experience subsection. So I'm just going to click that and it adds an entirely new experience section for me. So if I wanted to, I could delete where it says experience since I already have that heading. And then I have new placeholders here to add a second job or experience in there. Now, it's important to note the difference between a section and a subsection. So in this case, experience is our section. We now have two subsections, so two different blocks of text here under experience. So experience is a section, and then my student teacher, and then whatever job I would put here would be my subsection. All right, so now moving down to skills, let's think of a couple of skills. So I'm proficient in Microsoft Office. And then I just hit enter to add a new bullet. I have advanced and then verbal communication. So whatever the case may be here. And you can continue hitting enter and add as many bullets as you want to. Now I want to insert a new section. So to get there, let me do that again. So I'm at the end of my last line here. If I hit enter once, I get a new bullet. If I hit enter again, I get rid of that bullet, and enter one more time just takes me down a line like enter normally does. So now I want to insert a references section. So I'm going to go back to the insert tab, to the text group, and back to quick parts. And I'm going to find references. Click that, and that inserts a new section for me. So I'm not going to fill this out for now, but essentially that's how you navigate this document. So I'm going to hop back over to my PowerPoint for a few slides because now we're going to talk briefly about a cover letter, which is another thing you'll be creating this week. So if you're not familiar with a cover letter, it serves the purpose of introducing your resume. It can point out important parts of your application or call out specific parts of your experience that are particularly relevant to a certain job. It can also add a personal touch to your application and can add any information that wasn't included on your resume because it didn't really fit, or maybe you just didn't quite have the space. You can also use your cover letter to more fully explain information that was or wasn't on your resume. A cover letter can also show your writing skills in a non-bulleted format. So if you're applying to a job that requires a lot of writing or requires pretty advanced writing and grammar skills, a cover letter can be a good way to show those skills in a method that isn't a bulleted list on your resume, essentially. Now, there are a few things that a cover letter should contain. It should always contain a date. It should always contain an inside address. So that is the person that you're sending the letter to. And if you can't find the name and address of that exact person, do the best you can. Find the address of their department, or if you have to, just the company in general. It should contain your message, so the text that you want to convey to your employer. It should contain a signature block and a handwritten signature if possible. So I'll show you what I mean by that. There are several benefits to including a cover letter with your job application. Now, cover letters are declining in popularity, but it is still typically best practice to send one. Now, some employers won't require one, some will give you the option of if you want to or not, and some will specifically ask for one. So you can kind of feel out that situation for yourself, but it is important to know how to make one. A cover letter highlights the aspects of your resume that are specifically relevant to the job that you're seeking, and it can also highlight your achievements and activities that might relate to that job. It also shows that you're prepared and professional and willing to put in the work to get this position. So we are also creating a cover letter this week. So I'll be walking through part of this in class. Again, make sure to reference your actual assignment instructions when you're making yours. And don't forget to finish this assignment on your own and submit it to Dropbox. I did want to note that some elements of our class cover letter are there simply to test your ability to format in Word. So we're going to include things like a picture and a table, and these things are typically not included in an actual cover letter. So I wouldn't recommend sending the cover letter that you make in class to a job or a potential employer. You could definitely tweak it a little bit and make it very appropriate to send, but just know that we are including some of these elements just to make sure that you are learning and increasing in your proficiency with Microsoft Word. All right, so I'm going to hop back over to Word. Now I am in my Backstage view again. I'm going to go back and I just want to create a blank document. All right, so again, the first thing that I would do if I were you is go ahead and save this document to your computer with the naming conventions for your assignment. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do here is demonstrate how to include an online picture in your Word document. So we are going to insert an online picture to kind of serve as a logo for our cover letter. Again, this isn't something you would necessarily do in a real life cover letter, but it's useful to know how. So we're going to do that by going to the Insert tab on our ribbon, down to the Illustrations group, and there's a Pictures dropdown, and we're going to select Online Pictures. Now you'll have a little dialog box pop up. It'll have some suggestions here of search topics, but since I made my resume to apply to be a student teacher, I'm going to search teacher. And I'm just going to pick this first image here. So I'm going to select my image and hit insert. All right, so now I have that image on my Word document. Now you'll see that when this image is selected, we have two new tabs on our ribbon appear. We have shape format and picture format. So within picture format, if you go to the adjust group, you'll see that you have lots of options to adjust the colors in your image. All right, so we can make corrections to our image if you want to make it brighter, or you can soften it. So lots of different things here. You'll notice that when we hover over it, just like everything else in Word, we get a live preview. If you go to color, you can also recolor your image, change the tone of color. So you have lots of advanced options there. You have some effects that you can apply to your pictures. You can make your picture more or less transparent if you are trying to overlay text or something like that. So you do have lots of options there in terms of coloring your picture. So we are going to resize this picture. If we go over to the size group on our picture format tab and launch this dialog box, you'll see that we have some options for sizing here. So let's reduce our height and width to, let's say 35%. So you'll notice that when I type in my height and hit enter, it just changes the height and not the width. But if I type in my height and I can also put this in here, you can change your picture in either height or width. All right. One more thing to show. So as long as you have this checkbox here, lock aspect ratio selected, so let's say I want to change my height now to 50% and I hit OK, it will keep the dimensions of my picture. So that might be hard to see because my picture is really small here. And then of course you can also resize using the toggles available to you. So let's go back here. My picture's looking a little funny now. All right. Sorry, my computer's acting up a little bit here. So as I'm moving these, I don't know if you can see this over here. I threw the dimensions of my picture off, and it's pretty difficult now because I've locked the scale. So when I change one, it changes the other. If this happens to you, you can unlock your scale and try to fix that there. It'll still probably look a little funny, so I'm just going to reinsert my picture. And that's probably my best piece of advice. If you find that you throw something off a little bit beyond repair, sometimes it's easiest just to start over. So now that I've shown you the different ways that you can resize and some of the different ways that that can act a little wonky, probably the easiest way to do that is just by clicking and dragging in your corner, because it's also pretty easy to maintain your ratio in that way. All right. Moving right along. With my picture selected, I'm going to go to the Shape Format tab. I'm going to go over here to the Arrange group, and I'm going to click the Wrap Text button, and I'm going to choose In Front of Text. You can't see any difference with that now because we don't have anything else in our document, but what this will allow us to do is move our image freely around our page and position it wherever we want it. So I'm going to stick mine up here in the top right corner for now. So now we're going to add a little bit of information from our resume. So I'm going to go over to my resume here, and I'm going to highlight my address and copy it. There are lots of different ways to copy. My preferred way is Control C. And I'm going to go back over to my cover letter document, and I'm going to paste that in here. Now, there are lots of ways to do that too, but one specific way that I wanted to show is using the clipboard. So in our Home tab on the ribbon, the Clipboard group, if we launch this dialog box, we see our clipboard pane. And we just copied our address here, and we can click that to paste it in our document. So if you click this little drop down and click paste, that puts it in. You can also just click the actual thing and it pastes. So I pasted several times over here to show that. But we only need one. And obviously this formatting is a little off, so let's take this back over here to the left. If you notice that your information pastes from your resume to your cover letter in kind of a weird color or formatting, that is because you have copied not only the text, but also the formatting from your resume. So that can cause your address to appear in an unexpected color, size, or position on the page like we saw. In our resume, it was over here on the right. So when we pasted it, it was also over here on the right. So let's move on. Let's go back over to our resume. Let's get our phone number. Copy that. Back over here, you'll see that our phone number is now in our clipboard pane. And if we click that to paste, you have your paste options box pop up here. So we are pasting using the destination theme. You have the option to paste using text only, which will ensure that you don't get these weird colors. So let's replace our address as well. If we click it and we go over to this box and we hit text only, that fixes the formatting for us. So we have our address and our phone number, and we also want our email. So let's copy and paste that. All right. And now we want to arrange this information to be on a single line. So I'm just going to backspace and put commas between mine. There's definitely a more artful way to arrange this, but just for the sake of showing you how to manipulate this Word document, that'll work fine. All right. And then we want our picture to stay right here in the top right of the screen. So we're going to give ourselves a new line under our top line of information from our resume. And the first thing we want to do is right-click our email address and select Remove Hyperlink. Now, if you know that your document is going to be printed, it usually is best to remove all hyperlinks so that the formatting stays consistent with the rest of your text. All right, so now we are going to place our insertion point somewhere in this top line, anywhere will do, and we want to add a bottom border. So we are in the Home tab in the paragraph group, the borders, click the drop down, and I want a bottom border. So when I select that, you'll see that that divides this information from the rest of my document in a really clean way. I'm also going to close my clipboard pane because I don't quite need that anymore. All right. So now we need to set a tab stop for all of the information that goes on the right-hand side of our letter. So that'll be our date, our complimentary close, and our signature block. So to set a tab stop, you want to make sure your ruler is showing. Mine does automatically, but if yours isn't, you can go to the View tab, and then in the Show group, make sure ruler is selected. So to set a tab stop, we want to go up to our ruler, and when you hover over these different little triangles and squares that you have here, you can see that they all mean something different. We want to move our first line indent to the 3.5 mark. So right here between the 3 and the 4. And now we want to insert our date line. So to do that, we want to give ourselves about 2 to 6 lines below our address and phone number line. So let's do. So we'll do 4. We'll start right there. All right, so to insert a date line, I'm going to go to the Insert tab in the text group over here. I'm going to go to Date and Time, which is the one with the little clock. When I click that, I have several different options here. So I tend to prefer just a traditional format that's already selected. So I'm going to leave that selected, but make sure to click Update Automatically if that isn't already selected for you. What that will do is that anytime this document is opened, it will show the current date rather than showing the date that you created the document. So that's a really good thing to do. So we're going to make sure Update Automatically is selected and hit OK, and that'll insert our date for us. All right. Now we need to include our inside address. So again, the inside address is the address of the person who you are writing the letter to. We're going to give ourselves a new line, and now we're going to take the first line indent back to the 1/4 inch mark on our ruler. So back where we started. We're going to give ourselves 3 lines of space. So I've already done 1. I'll do 2 more. And we're going to insert our inside address. So just for an example, you'll insert the name of the person that you're writing this letter to, and then their company, and then their street address. So this is obviously made up, but sometimes it can be hard to find this information for an actual employer, but just the most specific that you can, the better. Sometimes this stuff is online and sometimes it's not, so it really just depends on your situation. Okay. So now that we've got that, we're going to hit enter 2 more times, and we're going to write our salutation. So that should be dear, and then the greeting and name of whoever it is that you're writing to, and then you want to include a colon. The colon is important. That's what makes this letter kind of businessy. We're going to hit enter again. And now I'm going to use this function here, and that enters a few paragraphs of random text. So I just hit enter, and this pulls from the Word instruction manual and enters some random text from there. All right. And now we're going to insert a table. So tables essentially are lined boxes with cells for data, and they can be moved together as a unit. There were tables on our resume like we saw, but they were part of the template. So now we're going to create one on our own for the cover letter. So we want our insertion point to be between the second and third paragraph in our text. We're just going to give ourselves a new line right there. Let's give ourselves 2 lines actually. And whenever you insert your table, it will be inserted wherever your insertion point is. So it's important to go ahead and position that wherever you want your table to be. Now we're going to go to the Insert tab, Tables group. If you click the table dropdown, this is a cool function. It kind of allows you to draw your own table. So we want a 5 by 3. Just click that and it automatically inserts that in our document. So we're going to just enter some random data in here. Row 1 typically serves as headings. So maybe I'm trying to describe the grades that my students have averaged in the different classes that I've taught. So I might list the institution, the course name, number of students, average grade, and I don't know, highest grade, maybe. I don't know that this is necessarily information that you would want to share in a cover letter, but that was just top of mind. All right, and then our next few cells here would just be data. So institution A, and then you can hit tab to navigate between your cells. Course 1, tab, let's say I had 100 students, average grade was a B, and my highest grade was a B, or no, excuse me, an A. And if I hit tab again, I go down to the next row. This is institution B, course 2. I had 105 students in here. My average grade was a B plus, and my highest grade was an A plus, let's say. Okay. Now, if I were to press tab in this cell, I'll demonstrate, that creates a new row for us. I don't want that new row, so I'm just going to undo that. But that's an easy way to add more space in your table if you need. Now we can format the data within each cell by selecting the cell and applying the desired format to the text, just like you would normal text. So let's say I want to bold my institution. I can go to my home tab in the font group and I can bold that just like I would normal text within a document. I can italicize, I can underline, and I can do that specifically to each cell if I only select that. All right. I can also press enter within a cell. So I'm going to go down to my A minus just to add a new line within that cell if I need to present some more information in there. All right. And I just hit backspace to take that away. So unlike pictures, word art, and online pictures, tables add 2 new tabs here to our ribbon, design and layout. So if we go to the table design tab, we can add different styles to our table. So if we just work within table styles, again, hovering over different options provides live previews here. So we can choose whichever one of those that we like. Also, if you hover over these, it gives you a little word box of what each table is called. So like this one, it says plain table 4. So if you're asked to insert a specific table, that's how you can know which one is which. We also have the table style options control group here. So we're not going to change any of these, but you can decide if you want a header row or not, if you want banded rows or different columns or things like that over there. All right, so let's select just one cell. So I'm going to select institution here. And I'm going to go to the table layout tab. And I'm going to select auto fit. I'm going to choose auto fit contents. And what I did there was I made that cell kind of snap to only have the amount of space within it that it needed to hold the content. So essentially, I took away the excess space in that cell. Now you have some other auto fit options too. You can auto fit to a fixed width if you want to. Within this layout tab, you can also insert different rows and columns. You can erase and draw if you want to. That's where your delete is. You can merge or split cells if you need to do that. So that's all in that layout tab. All right, now you can also manually resize rows and columns in your table by selecting the row. So let's select this whole row here. And if you see when I'm on the end of my row, I get this double-sided arrow. I can just click and drag to manually resize the row. All right. And you can do the same thing with a column too. So if you select the whole thing, you can manually resize that the same way. We can also see on our bottom column here, we can resize that way too. All right, you can also move the table. So my table's looking a little wonky now because I messed with it. But if you see you have this four-sided arrow button up here at the top left, that's my move handle. So if I select that, I can move my table around within my document. All right, I can also center the table in my document by selecting the whole table. On my home tab, the paragraph group, if I select center, which you can't really tell because I have a row that's way longer than the rest. Yeah, I'm not gonna mess with that. But that's how you center it within your document. All right, now Word allows for a couple different ways of adding rows or columns to a table. Probably the easiest way is if you hover over the lines, let's say between these two columns, I get this little plus sign. If I select that, I get a whole new column here. You can do the same thing with a row. So that allows you to have to move your mouse a little bit less than if you were going all the way up to the toolbar to do the same thing. All right, so I'm just going to leave this table as is. I know it's not looking great, but just for the purpose of finishing up my letter. All right, so now I'm going to place my insertion point after my last paragraph here. I'm going to press enter twice, and then I'm going to move my first line indent back over to 3.5 here. And I'm going to type my complimentary close. So that's just sincerely, comma, that's a period, comma, and then I press enter. And then I press enter 4 more times. And then I type my name. Now, I left this space between my complimentary close and my name so that I can print this off and sign my name right here in this space by hand. So this is known as the signature block. And if you're submitting your letter electronically, you would print it off, sign it by hand, scan it back into your computer, and send in the signed version. This just looks really professional. All right, so that's basically all on our cover letter. I did want to show you one more thing within Word. So if I select my inside address here and go to the Mailings tab on my ribbon, in the Create group, if I select Envelopes, it'll take a second to open up here. Because I had that address selected, I can print these labels directly onto an envelope. So that's really nice if you ever need to do that. Printing the address looks a little bit more professional than writing it by hand. And you can also print mailing labels if you would rather do that too. All right. One more thing to note within Word, if you ever needed to do this, you can save a Word document as a web page. So if you go to the File tab and you would just select Save As type, and you have all different types down there. You can save as a Word document, you can save as a PDF. You can also select Web Page, and this creates an HTML from your Word document. So I don't know how often you'll need to do that, but that is an option that you have if you need it. So to conclude, to hop back over to my PowerPoint here, that is all for the lesson. Your homework for next week includes a couple of videos to watch. Like I said, your reading will be an ebook, so it's posted on D2L. You'll have your Word 3 reading quiz. You have your resume homework and your cover letter homework, like we talked about. And then, of course, you have your discussion, which is Word Pro Tips. So make sure to get those things done. And I hope everyone has a great week. Thank you for listening.